Welcome to take 3 of taking over the world with Ed and Aaron.
Listen, things don't always go smoothly.
No.
But what we have realized today, for the second
Is
time,
we're transparent?
is we're transparent. One, hey, you just got to roll with the punches. Life is not always smooth, right?
It's not. It's not.
But we cracked the code today.
Yes, we
We
did.
have done what was long thought to be impossible.
Correct.
We added time to our day
Yeah, of course.
based on our math.
We added a minute and a
Man
half
math.
twice.
This is man math, right? Like lady math or girl math on the memes. You know, you go to
Right,
Target, you
right.
refund something, it's free money.
Right.
When you do 3 takes and you reset the timer 2 times each time, this is take 3. We reset it twice, so we gained 4 minutes today. Wow. What should we do with that extra 4 minutes?
I don't know.
What would you do if you had an extra 4 minutes in the day?
I don't know. I'd go streaking.
Bring your green hat. It's like straight out of old school. Bring your green hat. We're going streaking.
There you go.
Okay, and this is funny though. So this is hilarious how things work, right?
Right.
So I don't know if you've read the book. We talk about book. We don't read a ton, okay, but we should, right? We had this
Dude,
conversation.
if I read everything that I had in my house right now,
You'd be so smart.
I'd be like the Mega Mind, the big brain.
Dude. We talked about this yesterday in our car ride to a meeting. We
Right.
got some, putting some good things in progress. But I'm thinking about, okay, there was a book called The Compound Effect, and it talks about small changes, maybe not significant like, one after another, but like as you keep them rolling,
Right.
the compound effect, you do these small things and eventually, big changes happen in your day, right? And now it's funny is like you talk about 4 minutes. Okay, no, we didn't actually increase the day by 4 minutes. But if you start to think about it, like this is how my brain works sometimes, right? It's a scary place up here, and I don't recommend a lot of people traveling here.
Go for it, Pinky. Go for it, Pinky.
Right? So if you think about it, if you could do something in your day to streamline it, become more efficient, and free up 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes a day is not a big deal. 5 minutes over 2 days, 10 minutes. Over a 5-day work week is 25 minutes. Over a month, you're talking about 100 minutes. So you are talking like these small minutes, you can compound them and pick up a little over an hour a week, right?
A month.
A month. See, man math. I got way ahead of myself, right? So you pick up a little over an hour a month.
Right.
Although it doesn't seem significant, that's 12 hours in a year. So you, just by efficiently creating 5 more minutes of availability in a day, you've created over 12 hours of free time in a year, right? Which is, close to a 2 days worth of work, depending on who you are.
Right.
Right? What could you do with 12 more hours a day? In a year. Could you prospect more? Could you get some more content out? Could you deliver some? Could you
Read a book?
Read a book? I could not read a book. If it's got to have a lot of pictures for me to read a book in 12 hours.
Yeah, that's not. You make a good point, right? So streamlining things, making things easier. But there's some things you can't streamline,
Sure.
right? So we could definitely work on tools, right, in your business and in your everyday life that are going to make your life a little easier, a little better, that you could probably come across. But then, what if you're a person like me that
Oh, dear baby
constantly
Jesus.
that constantly has ideas and visions and
Sure.
not visions like I see the future. I'm not talking about that.
That would be sweet.
That would be sweet. But like visions like this is what I want to, this is where I want our organization to go. This is what I want to do. This is how many people I want to help. Like those kind of visions. Well, then all the 12 hours does is give you 12 more hours to think about those things.
Well, that's where, okay, first of all, you're going right down. Listen.
We're going down a rabbit hole.
No, we sound like we're smart. Listen.
We sound like we're smart.
This is straight out of the book that I just finished, Your Next 5 Moves with Patrick Bet-David. He talks about, that planning, having that next step ready, because you have to have that next 2, 3, 4, 5 steps, and although it's called 5 steps, sometimes he talks about just having the 3 next steps planned out, because if you don't, whether it's, sports, life, whatever industry you're in, like you look at your family, I'm sure when you guys started having families, I know in our family, we started planning out, okay, when do we want to have kids? How far apart? When will we move? Like all
You
this.
guys actually do that?
Heck yeah, man.
Oh, we didn't do that.
Well, I was told that's why we were doing it.
Okay. Yeah, no, we didn't do that. We didn't plan that stuff out. But I didn't know that you didn't know that Patrick was my good friend.
Patrick Bet-David, and what is he? Can we add him to the list of best friends of the show?
Oh, for sure.
Okay. So
He's up there with Pat McAfee and
Pat McAfee.
and
Coming out of Pat McAfee camp, I only know of him, although a big sports fan, I didn't really know of Vontae Davis until Pat McAfee used to talk about him a lot from the Colts. Sad day, man. They found him.
That was a sad day.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it was sad. 35 years old.
And you just start to think like in some of this stuff is like you just start to think what goes into it. Like obviously they haven't come to all the conclusions and who knows what it'll be. I read something that they didn't suspect foul play or something. So God forbid, he made a decision, but it's like, man, these football players and in all sports, like you put everybody on these giant pedestals and, like the pressure that comes with it. I mean, you look at, what was it? Simone Biles, the gymnast, right? Like these mental, like you just think they're invincible or they should be able to handle it. They're famous. They must have it so easy. And you forget to think like they're human and like the weight of the world sometimes they put on their shoulders to perform at the highest levels and represent your country or in the NFL or, whatever the case may be. It's like, man, you forget that. They're human, man.
We talk a lot about ego here, right? And how ego ruins a lot of things. And,
Sure.
And sometimes I think confidence gets portrayed as ego. And so last night was a big sports night for me, my daughter.
Oh, because the AA Pirates were on the field last night.
Did you see
the Summerlin South AA Pirates? Is that what you're referencing?
Did they win?
Did we win? 14-4, baby.
There you go.
I was like, I got you as naturally assume that's what you were referencing.
Of course. I said, go Pirates and everything. Right. I ran on your post when they were in the truck. I was like, go Pirates. Like, I wanted them to win. Actually, I was watching the Iowa LSU game.
The Caitlin Clark show?
Yes.
And
then I watched the UConn.
Okay.
The UConn SC show.
Okay. I don't even know who won that game. Did SC win? UConn?
So now Paige Beckers, UConn, who I've been following for years.
Well, you're into that. You're tapped into that women's basketball.
Right, because my daughter played basketball. So they're playing. UConn is now playing Iowa and Kate. So it's going to be a really good. It's going to be a good game.
Did I say SC was ranked they were a 1 seed?
SC was a 1 seed. UConn was a 3 seed. So it's interesting. But what I was saying was, I'm not a fan of like super over the top athletes, just in general, right? Like I've never been a fan of, even though I think he's a great quarterback and he's a good kid, Joe Burrow. Okay. When he shows up with the Ric Flair type robes,
smoking Joe Burrow. Yeah, there you go.
He's always smoking his cigars. Like that's Joe Namath-y. That's like way over the top, and I'm not. That's not my kind of guys, right? I've always been more of the. Barry Sanders scores a touchdown, hands the ball to the ref. Like, that's just me. I mean, in like everyday life.
You're coming out of the act like you've been there before school.
Right. Okay. Like, maybe I'm like an old man, get off my lawn guy. Like, but that's, like, I'm not saying I'm not. But it's one of those things that, like, even around here, like, we get certain awards and stuff for being at a certain level. And I'm like, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. And it doesn't matter to you as much either.
Right.
Right? So we're always looking at that. So last year when they LSU beat Iowa, and the LSU girls were like over the top, I was like, I'm not fans, and I haven't been fans since then. And then last night at their press conference, when the girls started defending
Angel Reese,
yes,
yeah, that was pretty
and then
good.
They're like, she's crying, and like they're all saying she's. And then I'm like, is it truly ego, or is it just confidence that I'm the best player out there? Whether you are or not is irrelevant. It's just that's how you feel, or is it all ego? Because to see her like break down in that conversation, I was like, man, maybe it's not. Because if it was ego, I don't think you'd break down. I think you'd be like, yeah, whatever.
So I have a theory on that, and I think Kid Rock said it best, one of the great poets of our generation.
Awesome.
It's not cocky if you can back it up. Right?
Okay. There you go. There you go.
Right. And I think like playing the game. I played baseball into college and stuff, and so like at a certain point, I think you have to have a switch where you have like an alter ego. Like I truly believe that you have to have a persona where like when you step onto the field, it's like, dude, this alter ego takes over. Like, you have to step on the field and think you are the greatest player on the court, right? Like, you have to be that tough girl. You have to be that tough guy. I think for Joe Burrow, he's like, okay, I've got to be that charismatic.
I gotta be swaggy Pete.
Yeah, that's what he hides. I shouldn't say hides behind, but like that's kind of the character that he's developed into. And I think it just, you gradually like naturally find your character.
Right.
And that's who you become. And it's like, I think that when the girls were saying, it's like, dude, she's not a bad person. She doesn't, like, nobody deserves hate mail and death threats over sports.
No, nobody deserves that, period.
Like, get out of here. Like, death threats over sports. Like, I've been mad at sports before. I have thrown golf clubs into lakes. I have snapped them around trees. And I'm like, you're an idiot.
Right.
Right? Like nobody, like, that's about that's your temper. Like, the death threats and stuff, like, I mean, come on. But it's like, I think that some of these girls, and the guys too, is like, when you step on that field, you have to transform. Like it was like they showed a thing with Kobe Bryant, and they were interviewing. It was when he was it wasn't on the Dream Team, but USA Basketball, and they were interviewing like D Wade and LeBron and.
Not Paul Gasol.
No. So this
I know where you're going. Yeah.
So, and gosh, I forget.
I think it was Melo.
Melo was there. Yeah. But anyways, Kobe's like, hey, first play, I'm running right through Pau's chest, right through his chest. And they were teammates and like boys. And I mean, like you've seen them in their family and stuff. Like they were tight.
Right.
He goes, first play, I'm going to run right through his chest. Give me the ball. I'm running right through his chest.
And everybody thought he was a kid.
And everyone's like, yeah, I got your boy. Like, and he said,
he nailed
boom,
him.
and he flat backed him. I mean, snot. We're talking right out of the movie, the program with snot bubbles coming out. Like Kobe Bryant, boom, flat backed him. But and they went on to whoop their rears, right? But I think you had to, like he felt in that moment to be a leader. That's not the kind of person he was. He was not like he was a dirty basketball player,
right?
But he was a leader. He had to set the tone. And so I think you get like a girl like Angel Reese, who the tone maybe runs through her. Iowa, it runs through Caitlin Clark, right? So some of these people that the team has to run through them, they have to be bigger, almost like bigger than the game, right? Like they have to put on this thing and just. Sometimes you got a Kobe Bryant, somebody, and flat back your boy to set the team right.
That's what I was thinking. Like I said, that kind of persona doesn't rub me the right way,
right?
Because I've been like. Maybe it's because of my age and the generation I was part of, and it wasn't all this flamboyant stuff. And then now it's a lot about that, right? Because everybody has their social media, everybody has their podcasts, everybody's doing all these things, and it's like, hey, yeah, look at me. So now it's different, but I think that. So I was like, hey, you know what? But then watching that, and even the first time when I watched it, I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And then I watched it again, and I've watched it a couple times since the highlights of this, and I'm like, and I've heard her like. Have a conversation with like a reporter at LSU or somebody that was part of the LSU program, just asking like random questions, like what do you like for dinner? What do you like to do? And just listening to her tone down and have a regular conversation and not be that hyped up girl.
Yeah.
I was like, man, maybe I misjudged that. Maybe I did. And I'm not saying I did or I didn't, but I'm like, well, maybe I did. Maybe reconsider that she's not really that over the top.
Well, it's fun now because we get that transition from sports, from football analogies, now like baseball season analogies, right? Like, so you look at the way baseball has started. Dude, there's already been like 2 or 3 bench clearing like situations. There's been like 5 ejections. Like, dude, like
there was a no-hitter?
There's been got the no last night from Space City. Yeah. Right? They're probably banging on drums and stuff to help him out. But it's like, but you know what? Like, so when I started thinking about it, like, right, the big one was when Royce Hoskins slid into second base on Jeff McNeil. And, right, it was over the bag. It was deep, yes, but it started a big thing, right? And then they showed, oh, well, Jeff McNeil had a problem with this when they showed a slide from his last year where he wasn't even close to the base. But, so here again, my point is that sometimes you get in a spot where you got to be the dog, right? Like, you've got to go into a negotiation on our end. Sometimes you're representing the buyer or the seller. You've got to be the dog and, like, you know, lay somebody straight first. And we're going to work with them, and we know, but it's like, you got to like establish early, like, this is how things are going to go. Right. And so that happens. The bench is kind of cleared. They get a little testy, right? Things, punches and all that good stuff is happening. So what happens the next night? Royce Hoskins goes 3 for 3, comes up for his 4th at bat. The guy wheels one behind his head, right?
Oh, yeah.
So Hoskins is like, dude, like.
Really?
Come on now. Right? And Pat Murphy, ASU guy, ASU baseball coach.
There you go.
So, right, he's like, dude, like, there's a time and a place for this, right? And even you can see Austin's going like, it's here, it's not here, right?
Right.
That's kind of the old thing, like, right? Like, tick for tack, you want to go there, you get one shot, you put it on his waist, you throw it just off the back because naturally the hitter, when they see it coming, is going to back up. So you throw it just about 4 or 5 inches behind you if you got that much control, and they're going to back right into it, right? And then you move on with it.
Right.
But it's like, I don't know if that pitcher probably came up in that moment. Probably a good pitcher, probably a nice guy, but he's got to set the tone for his team. Like, the Brewers are whooping us. This guy's 3 for 3. He's taking out our second baseman. He's got to go ear hole on the guy, right? So, like, but it goes to coaches, right? Like, I don't get thrown out of a lot of baseball games, but have I? Absolutely, right? But I always laugh because I'm like, I'm 2 for 2. The 2 games I've gotten thrown out of, we won. And we were losing, and we've had to have comeback wins. So sometimes, like, I'm more of a passive-aggressive coach. Like, I'm like, hey, Blue, no, I'm sure it was a great call. It bounced, so I don't understand how it was a strike. But, no, I'm sure you were right. You know, bouncing is going to be a strike. You know, like, and you know, my wife was like, oh, okay, guy, shut it down, right? But I'm a passive-aggressive guy, right? But it's like, every now and again, you got to flare off and be like, okay, here's where I make my stand. And you just got to go balls to the wall and earn it. Like, my buddy one time was like, dude, if you're going to go, you got to turn around and go back and earn it. I was like, yeah, you're right. And I went right back out there, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not done. And I let him have it, right? And he was terrible, and everybody agreed. But the energy started to pick up, you know? And so, you know, I go to that stuff. Sometimes you need someone to do something that maybe is not their normal character. But, you know, you got to start a fire sometimes, man.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. It's just you know, I don't mind admitting when I'm wrong, and I could be wrong. I'm not saying I'm wrong, but I could be. But it's one of those things. So good game Friday night though.
Which one was that one?
No, it's going to be this Friday.
Ooh, this Friday?
UConn, Iowa, man. Like, we already have it reserved on the calendar. Everybody's going to be downstairs watching this.
So Caitlin Clark, does she take a pay cut by going to the NBA? Or considering where she's at, because she can come back for one more year, right?
She can come back. No, yeah, technically she can. It'll be the COVID year, but
so
she's not. She's
NIL,
going.
WNBA. So like, I heard she announced she's leaving. She's going. But is this like a pay cut for her? Or do you think she's gonna set the tone for what women are gonna get paid now in the NBA, WNBA?
Well, the thing is that WNBA doesn't have the revenue to support more money. So I heard an interview with my buddy Pat and Ice Cube. And they were talking about the Big 3 league that Ice Cube runs. And he's offered her $5 million a year.
Ooh, to go play in the Big 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's only 8. Well, if you go to the
playoffs.
Can't
she do both?
Okay, that's what I'm getting at. So I thought it was and or, right?
Okay.
It's only 10 games. So she would play 10 games, get $5 million. Jay Williams was saying, well, maybe she should negotiate to like $7.5 million, and then some revenue share off the TV contract that he has with CBS now, and then be able to say, hey, I'll take home a bag of $21 million in 3 years, and then take that exposure to the WNBA. So now you have a bunch of people watching, and you'll make more money and bring in more revenue for WNBA. But I heard on the Pat McAfee show that he was talking about with Ice Cube was it's not and or, it's or. I mean, it's and. You're going to play both. And that Ice Cube would schedule his games around where she's at.
Have some influence on a league.
To not inconvenience her and the league.
Good on him. Like trying to, bring it all full circle.
He said he was trying to do that actually for he was trying to do that for a couple of NBA players. Yeah. But he hasn't gotten it. He's like, maybe this is a start to get the NBA to do this. And I think it's for me, it's awesome because I don't watch the Big 3 now or the 3 league now. But if Caitlin goes, I'm watching because I want to see how she does against guys. Even though the guys are older guys are not in their prime, I still want to see how she does against them.
Sure.
So I'm going to be watching all those games. And then I'd like to watch because like one of my favorite boxers always was Roy Jones Jr. till he got old. But when he was in his prime, he'd go play a basketball game and then get into a fight and then go fight. Like that was he would like. And I admired that. Like, how could you go play a full-on street basketball game and then 2 hours later you're in a boxing match. Like, how do you do that? He was a stud, so I'm curious how she does playing there and then all of a sudden move over there. Wow. It's kind of like us. How do we transition from being a buyer's agent and taking care of the buyer and understanding that, and then transitioning into a seller's agent?
Sure.
And now taking care of a seller, which is, you have two completely different hats on. You're doing two completely different things.
Oh, for sure.
So then how do you do that? How do you do it effectively?
And you know what I think it's nice about that is that it's like if you work in... You work for a certain industry and then you become an advocate against it. Like, you know the holes of it.
Right.
You know, so it's like when you're a buyer's agent, you understand. Like, you know, we've talked about it. Like, last year I was seller heavy. This year buyer heavy. Last year you were buyer heavy. This year seller heavy. But it's like, now that you see like both sides and we work them so much, it's like, yeah, when you're a buyer, you're like, okay, I know what I would want from a listen, boom, boom, boom. And now that you flip this side, you're like, I already know what I'm thinking. I know what I would do to myself.
Right.
Right. And, you know, and it talks, you know, it goes right back to Patrick Bet-David, best friend of the show. Shout out, homie.
Shout out.
Hashtag big homie. You know, it's like thinking 5 moves ahead. Right. So like as a seller's agent, now I'm thinking like that. I'm thinking I got to have almost both hats on, right? Like my full-time represent my fiduciary requirements to my seller, but I'm thinking 5 moves ahead. Okay, as if I was buying this property, what would I want from, you know, negotiating price, negotiating request for repairs, negotiating appraisal time, home and, you know, like home warranties, all this stuff, and having that conversation with myself or role playing in our teams that we can brainstorm and have it like, you know, like it's like our practice, right? Like, like you don't just show up to the field and play. So we're able to have conversations here all the time about, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And then when we go to talk to another agent, it's like the game's already over.
Right.
Like, I'm just going to tell you how this is going to go because we've already done this 100 times because I've been in my office. I've already had this conversation 87 different ways. Like, we're done. And that's what I heard you say about, you know, Caitlin. It's like negotiating. Right. And that's what we have to remember. Everything is just a giant negotiation.
Yeah. So it's funny because we talk about it all the time, how we do a lot of negotiating. We do a lot of behind the scenes where I don't think any of the clients realize how much time we actually put into. Sure. Because you were calculating yesterday, like transaction coordinator. How much time do they spend? Is it 5 hours? Is it 10 hours? Depending on what they do. And we definitely both agree, and not because my wife does that or Mercy does that. Like, we don't talk not that reason. That's the best money because lets us focus on what we want to focus on. Right, and we can focus and expand our business and do what we want to do. But one of the things that I think is truly important is the amount of time we spend talking out situations.
100%.
Right? I mean, we got an email from somebody, and before we overreact to it, whether it's me talking to somebody who's a little more rational than I am, right? Because I sometimes get very irrational about things. Right, and you're a little more level-headed, and you're like, hold on, let's think about this. Right. To somebody that says, hey, I need a little more experience because I haven't run into this. Have you run into it? Like, we talk about this all the time. Right. And you have experience with other businesses and stuff that I don't, because I've been in real estate for so long that's what I know. And that I think that dynamic helps us to help more people, right? It helps us look at the angle and the value we provide. I mean, yesterday I told you, hey, we got to start doubling down on content, and you're like, that's my love language.
Oh, baby, let's go.
Like, everybody has a love language. His is video content. And I'm like, hey, let's talk about video content.
Real estate related video content for the audience out there?
Yes. No, none of the other stuff. We'll just talk about that.
Not yet. Real estate's still going pretty well.
I don't think anybody would spend $3.99 for me anyways. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying, right? So we talk that kind of stuff, right? We talk about, hey, how can we provide more value? What can we do? Like, over the weekend, I went to go show a commercial space on Saturday, and I spoke to the other commercial agent that happened to show up, and he was like, I called 9 different agents to go show properties today. I called them on Thursday and Friday, and all of them said, go pound sand on the weekend. And I was like, yeah, I know that, because they don't want to show on the weekends. He's like, yeah, they don't want to. I did, because my goal is to sell the property that I have listed. That's my only goal. Easter Sunday, I get a call from my client saying, from a painter.
Oh, yeah.
That we refer to the clients, and the client has a leak. And I asked the painter, do you know where the cutoff is? They're like, no. I'm like, all right. Tell my family, deuces, I'll be back to go do that. I called the client first to tell them, hey, this is what's going on in your house. They didn't answer. I went, I turned the cutoff, called the plumber. He went out there the next day on Monday. But by the time the client calls me back, they're like, hey, I just saw your message. What happened? I told them what happened. They're like, oh, sorry we didn't answer your call. I'm like, no, it's taken care of. Guy will be there tomorrow at 11:30. Boom, it's done. It's handled.
Well, and I think that's where the difference starts to happen. And I think that's where we're going to see the monster change here in the next 3 to 6 months, is that the way we go about our business is about the client. It's client first, us second, right? Whatever that means, whether it's time, whether it's a concession on, helping with some closing costs, covering a hand, whatever the case may be, right? I think there's a lot of people that got into this industry, me, right? I want to be on TV. I want to be a top one producer. I want to do this. I. And then they look back and they're like, oh yeah, like I'm not doing anything. Yeah, that's because you started with I, and you forgot to make it about the client, that they're the reason we're in business. Because just like before this whole thing ever happened, like it's always been, a seller can sell without an agent. A buyer can buy without an agent.
Right.
So you have to come from a place of value. So unless you were coming from a place of value, from educational standpoint, from negotiating power, from connections that you have in the industry, I know you've done plenty of deals based off knowing the right people to get the answers you need, the time, whatever the case may be. But people don't, and when I say people, I mean mostly agents, don't understand that stuff. They just think like I thought when I first came into the business, like, hey, where's my desk? Where's the phone? And, where's the HGTV camera? Because this isn't like selling Vegas or something where like, like I'm going to happen. And it just doesn't work that way.
Like behind the scenes, they don't see the time, like the time you put into that repair.
Right. Oh, yeah. Down in Palm Gardens, right?
Yeah. I mean, that took hours of you calling different people, trying to find somebody.
After the deal's already done.
Yeah, we were closed. And he missed the buyer, our client missed his appointment
we had them all
to have
set
repairs.
up.
We had them set up. We had the check for the repairs that the seller had already paid for, already there, and he forgot. And you called him the day before and told him, hey, somebody's going out there tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right? And he didn't show up, and he wasn't there, and the guy just was there for 2 seconds and decided to leave.
Yeah, bummer there, but
Yeah. But that didn't stop. Like you kept finding somebody until you found somebody. You kept looking and going through, turning over every rock to figure out, hey, who can I get to do this repair for this client because it's important to him.
Right.
And you got it done.
Well, and I think that's the same reason why, we always talk, and, I think you got a couple new listings coming up, and I started asking them, always like, man, where'd you get these? What's going on? Referral, past client, referral, past client. Like, one of my buyers I'm working with now, past client. And I think that just speaks to the volume of the way that we operate. It's client first, us second. And if you go in that order, typically things work out good for you. Okay, I have a question. I know we're going to be almost out of time here, but so we closed on a rental property for a client's an investment property, and so the conversation became, and I think this is a good opportunity to educate some people as more and more people are thinking, what do I want to do with my money, right? I got some extra money. Do I want to invest it in the stock market, in some CDs, some whatever, financial planning, or do I want to buy real estate? Okay?
Real estate.
And right? So, but you hear the term like, what's your yield on stocks or return, right? And in real estate, a lot of people and investment sites start to look at cap rates. What is a cap rate?
Cap rate is simply what you bring in. So there's two cap rates that people look at.
Okay.
They look at a gross cap rate and a net cap rate. They look at the gross cap rate is with no expenses, just how much gross you bring in versus what you paid for the property.
Okay.
A net would be take everything off, and then you go, this is what I'm netting. Now take that away from what I paid, and that gives you a cap rate. Right now, the cap rates are kind of low because expenses are high. That's why in commercial, a lot of people do something that's called a triple net lease.
Okay. Oh, I've done those.
Yeah. So triple net lease, from being in business for yourself. Triple net lease for the tenant is not necessarily the greatest thing in the world, but everybody does it. That's just the norm.
Very standard.
Very standard. And on the owner side, it's fantastic. Because what you make is what you net.
Mm-hmm.
They pay, like everything's divided amongst the taxes, the insurance, the the garbage, the water, whatever. It gets divided amongst every tenant, the square footage wise, and that's what they have to pay.
Right. Yeah, but it was interesting because we started going through that the other day, and we calculated a cap rate for a rental property.
Right.
You know, you took off, you know, the insurance, the operating,
The
codes,
HOA,
the HOA,
management
right?
fees.
Property management, you know, all that stuff that they were going to be paying, and took it off the rent, figured out what the net operating income was, divided it out by the purchase of the property, and then it goes, "Why? This is as good, if not better, than if I would have put it in the market, and I should be, in theory, you know, generating some equity in the home as well."
And when we look at stuff like that, I think we're going to start doing. I think we need to start doing a little more of those videos on stuff like that, so people get to learn a little more about what we do and how we do it and what the numbers are. Because I can tell you the last large commercial deal we did with the 80 units, he's just added, just simply by getting 7 of them back on the market that were used as storage, he's added almost 10 grand to his income. And now raising the rates, he's going to add another 8 grand. He's going to refinance some other debt he has. And he'll be actually netting probably 25 to 30 grand.
And I mean, not only is he's raising the rates, but he's making upgrades to the property to
he's
justify
100%.
like, you know, so it's like, if you want, don't get into the theory like, hey, oh, they said, you know, you could buy a place and raise the rates. Well, you got to go in there and like, you know what, you got to, again,
he's spending time and
he's
money.
going in and thinking about the tenants first. If I give them a nicer place, they'll pay more rent, right? So,
right. And some of it is the way the previous owner had the property was, hey, we're going to charge you dirt cheap rent, but don't call me if anything happens.
yeah, and give you dirt cheap place to live.
Yeah.
Like, you get you get what you pay for.
Right. So a lot of the repairs were done, definitely not up to standard. They were just done. Right. Like whoever, hey Aaron, can you tape something up for me? That's gonna work.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Versus getting someone who's licensed to come in and fix it. He's doing it the opposite. He's going in and fixing it correctly and making sure. I mean, when we bought the property, a cabinet door falling on a pregnant lady's head.
Oh,
you know, and
not ideal.
And he's like, that cannot happen when I own it. Like it cannot happen. So yes, he's doing upgrades and that costs money, but at least you're going to have a much better place to live. It's going to look much nicer. It's going to be a nicer home for your family and for you to live in. So I'm excited to see what he does when he actually gets it all finished.
So maybe the news, I'm thinking new segment, a method to the madness.
Whoa.
A method to the madness.
If you watch this, put a little comment, see if you like that, or if you have a different name, or if you have any real estate questions, put them on there, whether it's investing in real estate, buying real estate, selling real estate, or anything to do with real estate, and we'll answer those questions on the method to the madness.
I like it.
I like it.
I like it.
All right, buddy. Have
Let's
a good
go.
one. Have a great day.